morning, Emergence Church. Good to be with you guys this morning on our daily devotional, working through the book of James, and we find ourselves in James chapter 3, and we're kicking that off right now. And James, Jesus' brother, is addressing teachers. He's addressing those who are called to teach, and he's also going to start the conversation on the danger of the tongue. But we're going to focus this morning on what it means to the calling of a teacher, right? And I think that, yes, James is very specific as he's talking to those who are overseeing and teaching specific in that time. But I think you can actually look at this passage and you can really find it helpful in how we incorporate these principles honestly into our everyday witness, right? The opportunities we have to tell others about Jesus, right? To witness to others, to share with just those in our neighborhoods, our friends and loved ones, Jesus. And so there's principles in here that I think we can use for both settings. But it says this, it says 3:1, "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouth of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder. Wherever the will of the pilot directs, so also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire." So James is starting a little conversation at the end of there of the tongue, and we're going to talk about that next time. But a couple things that stand out. First is, James starts the passage. He's talking about, those who will teach will be judged with a greater strictness. And I just thought, if you're feeling the calling to teach, there's this reality of walking into a teaching position or sharing this position with a really taking that heed, right? That warning, what I would say, heated realization of the consideration of what the calling is, right? This heated realization that taking, and not heated like it's hot, but heated as like taking that warning, right? That there will be a judged greater strictness in what you're saying, because the message is so powerful, right? The message of what we're holding, of what we're sharing is so powerful. And so the hope is that, as we sit through, maybe there's a teaching possibility here, or just even a conversation, is that we'd recognize the weight of it, right? We'd recognize just the weight of what is being shared, and the opportunity that we're called to. And I think that's where James goes next, where, he's talking about the opportunity really is a place of humility, right? It's this humble response to what we're being called to, right? It's a humble response to being called. For my own walk, and every day I'm like, God, how in the world did you allow me to do this? You know who I used to be. And that keeps me humble, because Jesus, he restored and rescued and saved me so that I can share that same hope that I received. And I think for many of us as we teach, or those who are having conversations, remember we're walking in humility, right? We're not talking about ourselves in any of this, right? Maybe our stories reflect Christ, but we're not talking about ourselves, right? Look at what he says. He says, it's none of us are Jesus, right? It says, for we all stumble in many ways, right? He is a perfect man. And none of us are perfect, right? Jesus is perfection. And so we need to highlight him and be humble in this calling that God has placed, wherever that is. Maybe that's the calling of a conversation at work, whatever it is. We need to walk in humility. If we find ourselves, reflecting more on ourselves, or we highlight ourselves in conversations, maybe it's a time to reflect and say, maybe we're seeking things outside of Christ, right? Maybe we're seeking validation that Jesus deserves, right? Or a recognition of man rather than over what God is saying. And start with, he is a perfect man, right? Let's start there. Let's start with what Jesus is saying, that he is the only one who's perfection, and we're not. We get to share that. And lastly, this honest recognition of the charge, right? The tongue is so powerful. The tongue is a blaze, right? Such a small fire. The horse, the picture of the horse. I went to a horse show the other day and watched this happen. Watched people, pull back, and these horses would move this way and that way. That's how powerful this little member is. So we need to realize just an honest recognition of the charge and how we use our words. Pastor Steve did a great job a few weeks back, and throughout our teachings, we try to be honest about our words and how we use them and the power that's with them. So this morning, maybe walk through that process, recognize the calling, the heated realization of what considering as you teach, walk in a humble response to that calling, and lastly, just this honest recognition of that charge and how we use our tongue, right, and the importance of that process. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you guys soon.